So wouldn't you know it, we're talking more about the Nintendo Switch 2 today because it's a topic I just love. There is so much conversation and so much going around out there regarding the topic of Nintendo's next machine and what some people think may be happening with it. And I actually want to add on a little bit more to my most recent Switch 2 conversation from a few days ago regarding some of Doug Bowser's recent comments on the idea. So I think we all know that the big topic going around this past week had to do with Doug Bowser answering a couple of questions regarding the idea of a Nintendo Switch 2 or Nintendo's next home console. And he, of course, focused on the fact that currently the Switch is doing very well. He did say some things about Nintendo feeling like they have a strong lineup ahead, which doesn't really add up with what we currently know. Of course, that might be true behind the scenes, and it just hasn't been shared publicly. But aside from Zelda and, of course, Pikmin 4, there's really nothing on the table from Nintendo that we know about. Metroid Prime 4, the only other game we're aware of, is still a complete mystery with no signs of a release window. But on top of focusing on the strong sales for the current Switch, he did briefly mention something about the concept of a Switch 2. And again, in my most recent video about this topic, only a few days ago, I did talk about these quotes. But I realized after revisiting them and thinking about it a little bit more and seeing some other conversations going around out there, I realized that there's a specific concept or idea to take away from what he said that I didn't really focus on too heavily in that video. And like I said, I want to revisit it and dissect a little bit more about what he said and why he said it, because I actually think when we read between the lines of these vague comments he gave, I think that he actually is hinting at a little bit more than what it seems like on the surface. So the quote in question is again this. He said, "I should be careful about what I personally would like to see in a new Switch. But what I can share is that one of the reasons that even going into year 7, we feel very confident that the Switch can have a strong performance over the next few years is that it is still truly that unique device that you can play in a variety of ways at home on the go. One of the things we look at always is how we can surprise and delight, how we can introduce new, unique ways of playing. That's always in front of our mind." Now, like I said, these quotes came out a couple of days ago, and I did make a video addressing this quote and another quote that I'm not featuring in today's video. And so this isn't about necessarily repeating the topic, because I think there was a lot we could take away from this about if it was confirming that Switch 2 news is coming soon, or if it was kind of denying the fact that Switch 2 news might be coming kind of soon. But I really want to focus in on the first part, okay? I want to dive a little bit deeper into what he said, where he said, quote, "I should be careful about what I personally would like to see in a new Switch." And I briefly just kind of glazed over that in my discussion about these quotes, but in looking deeper into it, I think that what he was saying is that I can't even talk about it because I already know the Switch 2 is being made and it is coming soon. Of course, I want to get out here near the beginning of this dissection of these quotes that this is speculation, okay? I'm not trying to spin this as a rumor or leak or actual news. You know, you guys know a lot of what I do is just speculating and dissecting situations and coming at them from multiple different angles. And I feel like I really missed an opportunity to dive into what this could mean, which is why I wanted to come back and revisit it. I think that even a lot of folks, myself included, missed that the very reason he said I should be careful about what I would like to see in a new Switch, I think the only reason he would phrase it that way is because he knows that there's something concrete behind the scenes that Nintendo is probably ready to reveal and discuss kind of soon. And of course, as I've mentioned in plenty of videos over the years, kind of soon could mean a couple of things. It could mean 6 months from now, or it could even mean a year from now. Okay, that's kind of soon to me becomes sort of a relative term based on what you're talking about. And I think if the Switch 2 is meant to be revealed even within the next year, even into 2024, I think that is kind of soon, because that would mean that Nintendo is basically close to finalizing everything they need to know about the architecture of the system, what new features it's going to have, what the controllers is going to be like, probably what the UI will be like. And of course, this should also mean that dev kits are probably in the hands of many other developers out there. I really truly believe, personally, that if the Switch 2 wasn't in the back of Doug Bowser's mind, that he probably wouldn't have phrased this way, by saying he should be careful about what he personally would like to see in a new Switch. He's referring to a Switch 2, a next-gen successor console in any way, shape, or form. To be fair, he himself doesn't say Switch. I think he was more referring to just a new device, whatever it would be. But I think because he probably does have the Switch 2 or next-gen thing in the back of his mind, that he talks about being careful about what he would personally like to see. Because he probably knows that whatever he might want to see or what anyone might want to see doesn't really matter when the decision and the hardware is already made behind the scenes and finalized behind the scenes. And I feel like the closer you get to the reveal of your new hardware, the more that stuff becomes final. And so he really had to dance around this in a very clever way. And I think that statement, man, and I could be wrong. Again, I'm just a fan having a fun time speculating about this stuff, so I could be wrong. But I read that statement as a very, very big hint that something is probably coming kind of soon. And we've discussed it on this channel many times, and the conversation has grown out there big time, that the back half of the year is currently empty outside of Pikmin 4, which is at the beginning of the back half of the year, right? Coming out in July. And of course, they're not coming to E3. We don't know yet if they're going to give us a Nintendo Direct over the summer. If they do, that could change things. There is still time for Nintendo to show us that they have Switch games coming out in 2023 over the holiday. That could still happen. Hell, I even think it could be Metroid Prime 4. I'm somebody who's still on the train of maybe that game comes out this year. It absolutely is in the cards right now, but I don't think it's very likely, and I don't think many other people see it as very likely. And I'm just going to go back to what I've said a few times over the past few months. It seems very clear to me that Nintendo has made room in the back half of 2023, after their biggest game of the year, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, comes out, for them to announce and reveal a new console and show us what it is and probably release it in the early part of 2024. They could shock the world and still release it this year, but I feel less like that's an option on the table, and it just seems like they're probably going to reveal it this year and release it next year. And I think that Doug Bowser dancing around this comment by saying he should be careful about what he would like to see in the device is a huge clue into what might be happening. Again, not a confirmation, okay? We're only talking about and analyzing clues and hints. And so I don't want anyone to run with it too much. A lot of people tend to do that, and so I want to be very crystal clear about what I'm talking about and what we're diving into today. Now, an element we have to talk about here as well is Doug Bowser's role in all this. It is something that I mentioned in my last video on this as well, and I want to remind everyone that Doug Bowser is not the guy to be in the position to spill all the secrets about Nintendo, right? And a lot of other folks have talked about that to their credit, okay? He works for Nintendo of America. They operate in a lot of ways as a marketing company for the largest gaming territory, which is North America and the United States. And so Doug Bowser is not the guy to be the spokesperson for some of the biggest news getting out there for the first time. But what I do think some folks maybe have missed when talking about this idea, and I'll even admit I didn't really bring it up as much in my video either, is just because he and Nintendo of America aren't typically the entity to get everything out first, especially big news like a new console, I guarantee you he is still very, very privy to everything going on. He is the kind of person and the kind of role that is almost tied at the hip with Nintendo of Japan and Furukawa and all of the biggest decisions Nintendo as a company is making, including in their Japanese headquarters. So while he isn't the guy to probably get the news out there and to confirm everything yet, and he's kind of operating as a PR spokesperson only, that doesn't mean that in his brain he doesn't still know the truth and know the facts. I guarantee you with 99.9% certainty, whatever Nintendo is doing with the Switch 2, whenever it's going to be revealed and the manner with which they will reveal it, the time it will release, and probably the first slew of games, I guarantee you he knows that in his brain. So even if he's being very smart and clever and careful with his wording, it's still probably predicated on the fact that the knowledge is in his head, because his position is high up that he would be privy to that information. So when we analyze a statement like the one I'm talking about here, that's why I feel comfortable calling it probably a huge clue into what might be happening with the Switch 2.